Okay, everyone, this is COVID and Cigarettes, the interview diaries presented by Aurora Theatre. This is Nicole Garbellini, and I am chatting with award-winning actor, director, playwright David Deblinger. As a writer, he is currently in production recording Salamanca, a story that he has adapted as an episode with an international cast for Jonathan Mitchell's podcast, The Truth. David is also the co-founder of the internationally renowned Labyrinth Theatre Company, where I personally had the chance to work with David and his team over an intensive theatre workshop. David, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you?
I'm good. And I'm so grateful to be part and connect with you and Aurora and this COVID and Cigarettes. It's been such a pleasure.
Finally, I mean, how long have we chatted about doing something together, whether in New York or in Hong Kong, where we could connect to the two communities? Like we've been talking about this for like 5 years since I have known you. So
Absolutely.
finally.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we made it happen.
Yes,
Really
not in the way we ever thought, not in the way we ever expected, but it happened.
Yeah. It's so funny how when things happen on their own or you respond, it's kind of magical that what life can bring you creatively too. And the littlest thing, oh, I'll submit to a little thing, oh, Hong Kong, oh, I remember Nicole, and then it's like, okay, and I have these two actors who can help me. Oh, and they have a filmmaker who can help. It's like, it's funny how little sort of going with the flow, I guess, can so often be beneficial,
Yes. So tell us about what you're working on at the moment. Tell us about yourselves and everything.
So I'm working on, so actually this Salamanca, that's been completed, and it is, and it's what you said, but I'm not necessarily working on it anymore because it was completed and posted on this wonderful audio podcast series by this guy, Jonathan Mitchell. Initially, I was acting in audio dramas, a little bit Twilight Zone science fiction-y stuff he makes, but he's a sound engineer that's won many awards and been part of, in America, something called NPR, the National Public Radio, and a bunch of shows on WNYC where I live in New York. And so I acted in his things, and then I did this performance piece called Lucky Penny, and we shot it, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll send him the video so he could see it. And I sent it to him about 9 months later. He watched it, and then he says, wow, it blew me away, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, I submitted sort of an idea to, it was an hour and 10-minute show that had a narrative that was pretty intense regarding a lot of humor, but regarding the death of my dad and the sickness of my dad, but with a lot of humor in there as well. And anyway, I submitted a pitch, and he went with it, and we recorded that, and that ended up getting sort of having further life because a national show on this National Public Radio picked it up, and it got a much wider audience through this show called Snap Judgment out of the Bay Area in California. And then I did this second one, Salamanca, which was a lot of fun. Right now, I'm working with the director of Lucky Penny, who's a professional writer for television, actually, but he's creating a new piece that is sort of about a dark romantic thriller, and it would start as a solo piece, but the idea that I have, and it's at early stages, we're at Labyrinth, where we have something called the intensive, and so I'm going to present what I have of the piece in December, in late December, and I have a lot of work to do with my my director dramaturg Ben on that, and it's got it's sort of loosely based on a relationship I had many years ago with with a woman who considered herself a witch. She was into a particular thing called Wicca. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wiccan religion, and she did spell, and sometimes it scared me a little bit, some of the stuff she did, and I was like, oh, it was sort of comical in a way, and yet she was also involved with a business that was kind of interesting as well. And so anyway, so that's one thing writing wise I'm working on. I'm as an actor, I'm actually up for a couple of television things that I'm waiting to find out about. And then yes, and as a producer, I just finished this really cool project called Acts of Love Dreamscape, where I brought together an international group from a bunch of countries of students from a place I teach called the HB Studio in New York. And basically I facilitated this group of 24 to create, based on these two themes, acts of love and dreams, 4 different types of things. One was stories, the other was movement, then it was original music, and then comedy. And we culminated about a week and a half ago with 2 evenings, mostly of pre-recorded things, but mixing these 4 different things: story, music, movement, and comedy, and animation too. We had a bit of animation involved, and it was so much fun. So I love sort of both helping others create stories like yourself, directing and producing people's work, as well as myself collaborating with others. So it's definitely the pandemic with all its horrors. We were just talking earlier about how it also kind of kicks some of us folks who have been talking a lot for many years about writing and doing this and that. It sort of kicked us in the butt in a good way, I guess.
Yes.
To make it happen, like yourself. I don't know. Well, you've been making stuff happen for a long time, but
well, it sounds like I'm not saying that COVID hasn't affected you, because of course it has, but you have been dodging it. You kept so busy and motivated, and you helped out people, and you reached out and you came forward to me and to others. So that's brilliant. To know that there are practitioners, artists out there who, don't sit around and wait for things to get better, but they are proactive and help each other out and do stuff. And that's, I'm not happy about the whole world situation, but I'm happy that we can connect and be there for one another. So that's great.
Absolutely. And yeah. And yourself as well, and creating this amazing company, Aurora, and you also teach as well, and
yes.
and direct and produce. It's amazing.
Thank you. Well, right back at you. So, okay, now I want to direct us towards COVID and cigarettes, and let's talk about your play, Happy for You. So you worked with William Martinko and Sophia Drapeau and Lauren Quigley. And you had this very vibrant, active young team to work with. So how was it to work with them? Tell us more.
It was great. It was so great. So this is like a short play or short play, I guess, that I wrote a number of years ago for my company Labyrinth's program, because we would do that. Instead of just ask people to do scenes from published plays, we would write new scenes, and that would sort of be an exciting thing for us as well as students. And then I've been teaching professional acting now for besides Labyrinth for about 8 years, and I teach at a place in New York also called Stella Adler Studio, and they have a program with New York University, NYU, and I was teaching 3rd year scene study, and I gave this scene out to two young ladies, these two young ladies about less than a year ago, last spring, and I'd seen the scene done a number of times, and I knew it played pretty well because I've seen it done a number of times, but I definitely saw them take it, and I was excited by that. And we actually decided to work together after that, thinking about, well, what could this be, a full-length play? And we started meeting, and I'm like, so I have definite challenges with, I don't know about laziness, when it comes to writing, like I'm always like, but when I know I'm going to meet two people, so I would like meet them every 2 weeks, and like 2 hours before I'd like write a couple pages or write a page, and we would read it, and we were sort of in that mode of like building a little bit of ideas to expand it into a full length. And then I got an email from you, and it was about this COVID and cigarettes, and I was like, oh, 10-minute plays. Oh, I'd be happy for you. I was like, so I just sent it to you, and you got back to me. Oh, it's pretty good. We have actors and we have directors. And I was like, oh, well, actually, I have 2 actors who just did it, and maybe I could see if they're interested. And they go to NYU. They're pretty young, but and I said, and they did. And then Lauren was like, you know what? And I have this amazing friend of mine who's a filmmaker, and he's so young, but he's already made like 2 feature films and 4 short films. And let me send the script to him. And he got it, and he read it, and he loved it. And he was like, let's do it. And let's make it, let's see if we can make it look like it's not people that are in separate places, but make it look like people that are in the same room. And he got on the phone, and he sort of directed them. I mean, we rehearsed together, and I sort of gave input, but then he got on the phone and had them shot it. He drew storyboards. He did layouts of the apartments to try to make it look that. He put a lot of work into it, and then he did one shoot with Lauren, and I had some thoughts acting wise that I wanted to just throw at him, and we had a little discussion, and he did another shoot. I mean, I was like, you don't have to do it. I'm just going to put out what my thoughts about this. And if you want, but I'll go with exactly that, because they're all working for free. How much are you going to ask for people when they're working for free? And, but he was like, after our discussion, he was like, okay, all right, let's do it again. And he shot it again. And I think we both felt that it improved, and the 2 of them have a great vibe. And so, again, I just want to say I'm opportunities help human beings make choices and take risks. And for that, again, I'm really grateful to you, Nicole, because you gave me an opportunity to make choices and take risks. And I hope that we continue on in one way or another in the future.
Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful to you and to your team for all the work that you put into this. And it looks, happy for you, looks so professional, looks so good. It's like, when I thought like, okay, let's try to do this thing. Let's try to do like 10 minutes plays virtually online. I was like, okay, well, we call them 10 minutes plays, but for the Zoom or filmed, maybe they're not plays, maybe they're short movies more than short plays. But you know what? It worked, because it feels like a short movie / plays festival. They're of course, the material is very theatrical, because it's all written by playwrights, people professional in theater. They know how theater writing works and looks like. So it was like the result was a mixture of theater and movies, which we'd never done this before. So we're incredibly grateful and incredibly satisfied as well. And of course, looking forward for more. So yeah, because unfortunately, I think that this is going to go on for a while. So might as well make alternative plans.
Yeah, I do think that digital content for me it's really exciting. When you get such a big limitation, whatever it is, it forces people to work within those limitations. And again, I think it is a source of creativity to have, I mean, when you can do anything, everything's, you got, it's a little, it can be more daunting than when you have a specific, boundaries as to what you can do. So, and challenges. Yeah.
That is true. So I'd like to know, what inspired you to write Happy for You? You said that you wrote it a while ago. What was the source of inspiration?
There were a couple of sources of inspiration. So I mean, I won't, obviously I won't say names or whatever, but I had a friend in my high school years who very, and actually after high school, even more so, for a number of years, we became very close. And actually he was a guy who was really one of the most talented people in a certain way that I'd ever met, because he was not only an incredible singer-songwriter, but he was also, or is also, an amazing actor, and anyway, and sorry, it's a little, I hope I'm not being too specific here. Anyway, but there was a point where the depression became such a challenge in the friendship for me that I felt I needed to sort of kind of break up.
Right. Yeah. Too much, too intense. Yeah.
It was a bit too much for me. I still love him, actually. I still care about him very much. And I still think that about him creatively as well. But at the time it became so much. So part of the inspiration was sort of out of that relationship. There's also something that I'm not even sure if it happened, but I had heard about it. My father unfortunately passed away in 2014, but I have an older brother as well. But anyway, I had heard this, it may not have even happened, but I had heard that my brother and my father were in the car, and my brother was driving, and my brother was maybe in a bad spot, and he was talking about, like, maybe, again, I'm not even sure if this is true, but maybe he was driving and he was talking about ending it, like ending his life. Right. And my father was in the passenger seat. And my brother may have been talking about this, and my father, my brother's talking about ending his life, and my father leans over, takes a hold of the steering wheel and goes like this. And my brother goes, "Wow, are you out of your mind?" And my father was like, "See, you don't want to kill yourself."
Wow. Good for him. Wow. That was a fast, sharp, quick fix. Like, you want it? It's there now. No? Okay. Then you don't mean it.
So that if anybody watching this ends up ever hopefully seeing the piece, you'll know why I mentioned this, this little memory, because I think it informed a little bit on the way I wrote the Happy for You.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a deep thing when you love somebody. There's almost like, and they are thinking of ending their life, and you love them. Obviously it's a very painful thing, and it's almost a little bit like, how dare you? Yeah. And at the same time, I'm not saying depression, people want to be depressed. So it's tricky. And I guess one thing as a writer too that I definitely respect, and I think is important as a writer, is to be able to get behind different points of view with everything you got, and not make one character the correct, and that, because then it's boring, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Even if you look at today, all the crazy division and toxic interactions, but as writers and as artists, to be able to really honor humans and with points of view that we may in real life think of as like terrible, but if you have to play it as an actor, you can't judge it.
No,
You gotta find inside yourself and your heart a different eyes and ears.
100%. That's
Yeah.
what I tell my students. They have to do that. Don't judge your character. Be your character. Cannot judge, because you don't know in what situation that character is. So, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you for sharing. And did you watch the other plays? Did you get the chance to watch the other plays?
I didn't watch the whole thing yet. I
Of course.
definitely plan on watching it all. But I know there's a few writers that I know, like Glenn.
Oh yeah.
And also Dipti.
Well,
Glenn and Dipti are both people I know, and I think I may know a couple of directors too. Who directed Dipti's piece? Was that?
There was Faith Lawson. Faith was someone who used to, is someone who used to live in Hong Kong. She was very close to me. We worked very closely together. Faith helped me as a co-director, as a costume designer, as a stage manager, as an actress. Woman of incredible talent, Faith Lawson. Yeah, really, really good. So she directed that one. Yeah, she's in New York now.
Oh, is she? And
yeah, she came back to New York like a few years ago. Yeah.
And your company produced before the pandemic the mission of Aurora. Would you say it definitely is connected to new work?
Most likely, yes. We do a combination of both. We do new work when we can, and we did new work. We did shows that nobody has ever heard of, such as Thinner Than Water, The Last Days of Judas Iscariot, Den of Thieves, all this stuff, you know. Me coming to New York going like, oh, what's this? Oh, I want to read it. Oh, God is good. Oh, I want to do it. Oh, stuff like that. And then our last play before COVID and Cigarettes was also new, original and Hong Kong written. We wrote a play called Mussolini's Mistresses, the life of Mussolini told by his main lovers.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And did you have any special, I don't know, connection to that, being from Italy yourself?
Yes. Yes, actually I did, because I grew up in a family where Mussolini was actually liked, believe it or not. Not all of my family liked him, but if I remember my grandparents, they all liked him. So interesting. So I always thought, like, you know, Mussolini was like a psychopath, you know, not very far from Hitler. But I was always fascinated by all these women that he had. That, you know, like back in the days, it's like 1920s, 1930s into the 40s. And Italian women were like, you know, good for family, shut up, don't make a mess, don't make noise, and be a good wife and a good mother. And that's it. But all these women who left their families, their spouses, to be with him, like, okay, I need to investigate more, because like, what was it that it was like so charming that women just fell to his feet? And there was, of course, like, there's a lot to that story. The most fascinating, like, there are, like, of course, like, there were lots of women that were fascinating, especially this Jewish aristocrat, semi-aristocrat, who was the one to suggest him how to run the fascist party and how to set things up. A Jewish woman. Interesting.
Wow.
Fascinating. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. You know, yeah, I it's funny how, like, that mixture of politics and personal. You know, I rewrote this one little speech. I'm sure you might remember the in Happy for You, that I had originally written her talking about George W. Bush, who was, you know, in my mind, I mean, at the time when George W. Bush got voted in a second time, I thought it was the end of the world. I personally, I thought it was the end of the world. And now, what we've been through lately with this guy, it was like, oh my God. And that guy, and then W. Bush keeps popping up as like this lovely, you know, voice. And in the little rewriting that I did of the writer character in Happy for You, it touches upon this idea that is important to me of how we're all wounded. Usually, mostly everybody, if not everybody, in some ways has been wounded. It's just life. And when you're young, things happen in a way that affect you.
Yeah.
And it affects how you think and how you feel and how you relate to reality. And as art, and it may project you in a direction that has you responding to stimuli, to events, and having relationships that are colored by what happened to you as a child. And it can be very difficult to change or overcome what happened very early on. And that's kind of what therapy is for, but it's also what I think art is for. And anyway, so again, I am one voice, but I am definitely a progressive person, or at least I define myself that way and think that way. And I think that the current, thank God, not will be president of this country has been like enormously damaged in ways that he'll never probably examine. And I think it's affected the entire world. His personal coping mechanisms of probably a quite challenging childhood he had has driven him in ways that, well, and he's not alone. You know, many millions of people. So anyway, I that was included in sort of the new writing that came into this, which I'm appreciative of. And these actors were, you know, both tremendous. And Will Martinko was just really amazing in his energy and in his commitment and his analysis and of what's going on, and his understanding of filmmaking, which I'm a filmmaker too, but you know, I have a lot to learn from somebody, even though he's probably 30 something years younger than me. He's got a lot to teach me, I think, and I hope to work with him in the future. In fact, I don't know if it's going to happen, but he wants to raise a little money to shoot it as a film. And even more so, and have it with better equipment and on location and together, hopefully, and not apart. So that's kind of another exciting sort of blessing that came from this COVID and cigarettes, which was such a great idea at this time to do. So again, kudos to you.
Thank you. And to you guys. I met your team. I met Will, I met Sophie and Lauren, and they were so full of energy, enthusiastic, appreciative, grateful. It was like a pleasure to have them. We need this kind of vibe, and, you know, like, so New York. I'm like, yes, I need that. I can't go to New York, but I can get this, you know, it's something. So, talking about COVID-19, how were you affected artistically? I'd say mostly, and or otherwise.
I mean, like everybody else, I've been pretty much. I was pretty lucky because I do a good deal of teaching, and it all just went virtual. And the one school that I work at, HB Studio, there was a guy who worked there who I had been in talks with and worked with on a couple of projects that I directed. who's like a super tech guy. He actually owns a quite a successful special effects company in New Zealand. He does work for Peter Jackson and movies and television, and but he does it remotely. And he at least up to a few months ago, he lived in New York, and he loved HB. And anyway, so the head of HB Studio, she wasn't really she couldn't imagine acting classes online. It was hard for her to grasp that. So I was like, grasp it, please grasp it, try to grasp it. And then this guy, George, who knows a whole lot more than I do about everything technical, I sort of enlisted him, and we trained the faculty and students, and that all just went online. And this project sort of also was supposed to be digital anyway. It was supposed to be a lot of creating work. Exactly. So that sort of fit. And then this other school, I teach Stella Adler, that bit. So we made my bedroom into sort of a place that needed to work. And that was, one pretty sad thing that I can't say I was extremely close with this individual, but I admired him and knew him a bit. And a really great actor and faculty member at HB Studio named Mark Blum. Early on in the pandemic, he went to the ER, and I believe he had asthma, and unfortunately he lost his life. He was like sort of a major figure at and a working quite actively working film, television actor and theater actor in the Broadway and Off-Broadway scene of New York, and such a mentor to so many people. And we're going to be having a really nice memorial for him in the new year. So that was one harsh way. And then besides that, I have a little boy. I have about to be 6 years old. And so obviously, and my wife and I, we have been in a box in our apartment for 7 months. So it definitely has had challenges that, thank God, up to now, we've been able to be okay, be healthy, and but we're pretty careful. And there's a surge, I'm sure right now, all over the world, including New York. And so we're continuing to be careful and really hope for the best. But I will say that I've been so fortunate up until now to not have a lot of work interruption. There was a bit because of COVID. And then besides that, I have asthma myself. So, obviously that's been, can be anxiety producing, and I have had to go to the ER once or twice. And, but as of now, quite grateful. I know this is an interview of me, but I'm curious with you as well. How have you been affected?
Well, my company in Hong Kong works with adults and children and youth. So we basically serve a lot of local schools around Hong Kong. We provide drama teaching, show productions for youngsters, workshops, all these kind of things. And with the school closed, we couldn't do anything because the schools were like, no, it's too difficult for students to do drama online, so we can't really do it. And we were like, with some schools, we were like 3 rehearsals away from production, and they never managed to perform the poor things. They put all this work. We were doing Shakespeare, we were doing a lot of things. They didn't get it. They didn't get to do it. So now, because they realized that they can't just sit there and do nothing, now they turned into radio plays and audio video plays, which now we're working on that. At least they get to do something, because there are some students in Hong Kong who are so passionate about drama, and they wanted to do something, not the real deal, but at least something. And it was a real shame that last school year, they didn't get to do anything. So as far as the adults were easier, because when we said, right, we're transferring everything to Zoom because we can't meet up, they said, okay, no problem. It is what it is. We'll do with what we have. And that was easier. So adults was easy. University was easy, like that didn't suffer too much. But the schools, the local schools, like high schools, oh, yes. Mm.
Yeah. And I guess you yourself have been, just whatever, wearing masks and dealing with it.
Of course, by law, it's illegal not to wear it, even if you walk in the street. I mean, like, it's unlikely that, if you don't wear a mask and you bump into a police officer, probably they'll just say, okay, put a mask on. It's unlikely that they will give you a fine or anything. But it's just like community spirit in Hong Kong, like everyone wears a mask. So if you don't, it's only you who doesn't. You're left out. Why would you? So, yeah.
That's great to hear. Great to hear.
Yeah.
Nice.
And of course, like I was planning this year, because it's a 10-year anniversary of Aurora. Me and my Mussolini's Mistresses team wanted to go to the UK to perform. We already kind of booked the theaters. We were looking into Edinburgh Festival. Scrapped.
Wow.
All of it.
Oh,
So,
that's too. Well, maybe they'll in the future or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe. I mean, have you thought at all about digital production?
I'm thinking about it. I am thinking about it. I'd like to do like a full-length play digitally. We get the right material that can be, like one location, maybe a home or something easy that can be shot with like on Zoom or like 2 cameras. When we, I don't know if you watched the play that I was in, Screens Apart. It's part of COVID and Cigarettes.
I'll start with that one. Say it again.
It's called Screens Apart.
Okay.
It's basically like we were supposed to use 2 computers. I mean, it was me and David, my husband, like acting together. So we were supposed to use his computer and my computer, but turns out that the light was terrible and the camera was just not picking it up. So in the end, we ended up using the camera from the iPad and the iPhone, and that was it. And then we did a bit of basic editing and done. So you actually don't need anything too fancy. You can still like go ahead and do things. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it is amazing that the camera from the iPhone is no joke. It's like a really great camera.
It's really good.
We've shot so many things in this other project that I've been doing, and I've actually done also a little bit. I did this web series recently that they had me shoot basically my lines, kind of what they did for Happy for You, pretty much too, and then connect. I mean, I did a rehearsal with the other actor, but we weren't live, so I was like, how are you gonna do that? But we did it, and it seemed to cut pretty well. A lot of people are doing that thing, especially when there's no budget. I mean, it is funny how in New York, though, the big productions of streaming and television shows and are happening. A lot of production is happening right now, and they are. I mentioned this friend of mine who's writing and producing for a television show on HBO called Betty. I guess the law in New York is if there is one person who tests positive, the whole production has to shut down for 2 weeks or something. And I believe his production did shut down for 2 weeks and then started back up again because somebody tested positive.
Right. Yeah, it can happen. Same when we did Mussolini's Mistresses, the theater that we used in Hong Kong said if there is one case, not even in the building, in the theater, in the whole building, we have to shut down. So we risk it as well, but we said like, yeah, well, we're going ahead. So hopefully, touch wood, nothing bad will happen. We were lucky, nothing happened. So nice. You gotta do it. All right. So David, what is it the first thing you will do when COVID is over?
What's the first thing I'll do when COVID is over
that you can't do now, obviously?
that I can't do now? Oh, well, I guess hang out
Mm,
with my friends and family, not my inner, circle family, not my wife and son, obviously, because I'm hanging out with them every day, all day, but my other family, my sister. I'll see her. I guess hugs. Hopefully, a lot of hugs,
yes.
uh, and um, and also start. I'll start spending more time probably in other places besides my apartment, like Manhattan. I actually hadn't even gone to I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I hadn't even gone to Manhattan for months and months. I didn't go to Manhattan. And then I went, actually went to shoot. It was really exciting, this for me, because this school HB studio, for this project, we wanted to do a shoot, with with actually, or maybe a Android phone or whatever, and about 10 dancers. But it seemed it was not a music video, it was a spoken word piece video. So this guy actually in Las Vegas wrote a spoken word piece, and we had all these dancers and this woman directing, and anyways, HBCU got a permit to close off the street like a real production. And so I went to Manhattan, and I helped with the shoot, and that was so exciting. But hopefully I'll be going to Manhattan much more. I'll be traveling much more. We spoke earlier that I'm considering leaving too. I don't know. I'm considering leaving. I've lived my whole life, New York, maybe even the country. We'll see. We'll see. We're exploring the idea. So yeah, hugging and traveling, I guess, would be two things.
Definitely traveling. In Hong Kong, you can hug to some extent. You can.
Is that right?
Traveling, I really miss it, but I want it to be safe before I do anything. Because it's easy to, it doesn't matter how old you are or how healthy you are. You can really catch something nasty and deal with the consequences later. So I can't wait for traveling, but we've got to be safe.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going towards the end of the interview. Tell us, what is your work that you are the most proud?
What is my work that I am the most proud? Let's see, what is my work that I'm the most proud? Well, I guess a couple of things come to mind. I mean, the word work, when we started Labyrinth, one of the reasons I like that to have the title co-founder of that company is because it was totally, not professional when we started. There was no anything, but there was some work that we did as sort of leaders of the company. We wrote things down.
That's how he starts. That's how you do it.
we did some work to help launch that, and then I still sort of do work. So that obviously that company, with all the accolades it's received and all the great people involved, I'm definitely proud of that. Another thing, I guess there's a couple of things I just quickly mentioned. One is I acted in a John Patrick Shanley play that he directed. I got to act in 2 plays way back in the beginning of 2000. One was called Where's My Money? And I played a crazy guy who was not positively crazy, but quite comically crazy, I guess. And I got to do some work, and we moved it to another theater. And I was once at a party of Shanley, who's, now he's an Oscar winning, this Pulitzer Prize winning writer, and this particular play didn't become, you know, a big successful play of his. But I was at a party once and he said, this scene I did in that play with this great actress named Florencia Lozano, he said, I feel weird saying this, but you know, you say proud. And he said at this party, he says, that's the greatest acting of my work I've ever seen. And you know, nobody knows it except for you and me, really, and him, I guess, because that play didn't become Doubt. It did, and I didn't, you know, but it was nice to hear. You know, I've been making short films and different things, and I made one with a at the time a teenager who was homeless, and he learned a little bit of a speech from Shakespeare, and I enlisted some of my Labyrinth colleagues at the time, like David Zayas, and this Mexican cinematographer, producer, and we shot this video called Shakespearean Minute, and it was this teen at the time. Now he's in late 30s, and I submitted it to something called the New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship, and I won that year. I won the fellowship, and it was a beautiful piece that I directed. So that's like a little directing thing I'm proud of, and acting, and then I guess co-founding. Three things I'm proud of. But the biggest thing really in my life is my son. You know, that's, I mean, I know that's not work, I guess, but
yeah, that's okay. That counts.
That's the most unbelievable thing that's ever happened to me. And I work every day to hope to be able to be the best dad I can be. And
you already are.
I don't know about that. I think
you already are. Well, tell you what, though, I haven't seen the projects that you mentioned, but I did see Labyrinth Theatre Company, and that is definitely something to be proud of, because the work that you do, what you put together, even, you know, like it's, you said it was co-founded, so it was you and somebody else.
It was me and three other people.
Three other people. Okay. So the work that you started and put together and continued, unbelievable. It's what you guys inspired me to do what I do in Hong Kong. So see, all connection. We're all connected.
So great to hear. So great to hear. Thank you so much for everything, Nicole. And I really hope to stay in touch with you and work with you more and more in the future.
Likewise. Absolutely. David, just to conclude, do you have a favorite play or playwright?
A favorite play or playwright? Well, it's terrible. You know, I think August Wilson is definitely up there as in some ways for me, as like almost the America's Shakespeare in a certain way. I mean, I feel so blessed that to be a friend of Stephen Adly Girgis, and I will read sections of his work sometimes, and I'll just be like, ah, just like laugh out loud, like it's sort of like, to me, it leaps off the page, in the life involved. In the way he just structures the words, and it's just so putting sort of flesh and heart into the story in dialogue. And so he's definitely, I guess in a way he might be my favorite, because he's so funny and moving. Yes. You know.
I second that. For me, it's one of my favorites. It's out there. It's up there. Mm-hmm. Yes. So
cool.
Great. Fantastic to have you. Thank you so much, David. It's been wonderful to chat with you and catch up with you. So that's fantastic. So
maybe we'll connect in London. Maybe I'll move to London. I don't know. Or maybe who knows what the future holds, or also with this digital life of creating work is quite interesting as well.
Exactly. It doesn't really matter where we are. We're all connected. So it's easy, it can be done.
Yes, yes.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. So that was David Deblinger from New York. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch the interview on either YouTube or Facebook on our channels. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.